So yeah, we've got these two different types of cells: animal cell and a plant cell. Now, to be clear, these are general animal cells, like a generic animal cell, sort of a stereotypical animal cell, if you like, and a generic plant cell. In reality, there are many different types of animal cells that look very different to this one, and many different types of plant cells that look very different to this one. But if we wanted to draw a general, what more or less do animal cells tend to look like, we can draw this basic one, and this is what we would say is a basic plant cell. Um, an example that one of an animal cell that might look a fair bit like this might be a cheek cell. So in school, sometimes what you do is you get like a sample from the inside of your mouth, on the inside of your cheek, and sort of get a collect. I'm not sure what they use. Maybe a swab to swab the inside of your cheek, and that might collect some cells off the surface of your cheek, and they can be put under a microscope. They may look like this one. This cell, and a plant cell that looks quite a lot like this one, is called a leaf palisade. Palisade. Hang on a second. I forgot if it's Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I just realised that last little bit I paused and it didn't unpause. So let me just. Okay. So animal cells, organisms that are made up of many cells, are what we call multicellular. Is it one L? Cellular. That'll probably is two L's. Cellular organisms. So an organism is just a living thing. So this is organisms made out of many cells. Okay, so let's have a look inside these cells, and we're mostly focusing on respiration and photosynthesis here. A lot of people think respiration is breathing, but it's not. So it's probably that's the wrong keyboard shortcut. So it's probably worth us mentioning that straight away. Respiration is not breathing, but it is related to breathing. Okay, but it's also related to other things as well. So it's not really. It's a bit confusing because the breathing system, the organs in your body that enable you to breathe, is called the respiratory system, which is, you can see why it would cause confusion. And I think, in fact, respirating might actually be a word for breathing. I'm not sure about that, but there is some crossover. But if I say the word respiration, I'm not talking about breathing. So let's learn what I am talking about. I'm just going to pause the video and get some words ready. So I've got these different words for names of different substances, which most of them you would have recognized, maybe all of them. Respiration is a chemical reaction. It's a chemical reaction that happens here in the mitochondria of all cells. So we are a multicellular organism. We're made out of millions and billions of these different types of cells, and our cells have mitochondria in them. And in order to keep us alive, we need to keep our cells alive because we're made out of the cells. In order to keep the cells alive, we need to provide them with energy. To do that, we use a chemical reaction called respiration. So what is a chemical reaction? Well, a chemical reaction is basically when you take one or more chemicals and you change it into another chemical or more chemicals. In this case, we're reacting oxygen and we're reacting it with glucose. We need a plus symbol in a moment. This arrow is showing you what is being produced. So the carbon dioxide is being produced. I think I might, put it like that. So it's a bit more squashed up. And water is being produced. So let's get some plus symbols. I think we've got little plus symbols here somewhere. There we go. It's a weird looking plus symbol, but it'll do. Yeah. So this is really what respiration is, I suppose. It is this reaction. But what happens when we do this reaction, when this reaction happens inside our cells, is that it produces energy. So in your textbooks, you might also see this written on the side of it. You might also see, let's get this, plus and then energy, and energy is usually written in brackets. Now the reason why it's there is because the whole point of respiration is to produce energy. We're not doing respiration because we've got too much glucose or too much oxygen, or that we want some carbon dioxide or we want some water. We do need water, but we drink it in much larger amounts. We don't do respiration to produce it. The whole point of respiration is to produce energy. And so actually, these on all chemical reactions, we'd call them products. But strangely enough, in this chemical reaction, we call them waste products because they're not the purpose of the reaction. So let me just make my pen a little bit thinner. So waste products. So it's not normal to have a reaction where all of the products are waste products. But in this case, they are labelled in that way because they're not. We need to get rid of them. Then we don't need them. It was this that we needed, and this shouldn't really be included in the reaction. In the equation, I should say. An equation is a way of showing a reaction. What I've just drawn is an equation. This is the point of it, but we shouldn't really be including it. We're just doing so because we're emphasizing what respiration is all about. The things that are reacting in all reactions are called the reactants. Okay, so as I said, this is a reaction that's happening in all the mitochondria. So so if it's going to react, it's going to use up the glucose and use up the oxygen. So it needs more glucose and more oxygen. Well, the oxygen, we do actually get that from breathing. So respiration is related to breathing for that reason. Okay, so this is from breathing. It's a whole topic on its own, but how does the oxygen get to the mitochondria when we breathe? That's to find out the answer to that, we need to learn all about the respiratory system. Essentially, you breathe in, air comes in, which contains a fair amount of oxygen. The air moves down into our lungs, into air sacs known as alveoli, and then the oxygen within the air crosses over a little semi-permeable membrane, which is like a sort of thin layer of skin that it's able to travel through, and it gets into our blood, and then our blood carries it around our body and delivers it to all the different cells in our body, which is obviously and then you need to also learn about the circulatory system, which is how the blood and the heart work together to deliver the different substances. So the heart's going to pump the blood, which is carrying the oxygen around the body, and then eventually it will get to the mitochondria of all the cells in all of your body. It also needs glucose. We don't get that from breathing. We get it from eating. So this is from food. Now, we don't necessarily get it directly from all the food. So glucose is a type of sugar, and not all the food we eat has sugar in it, but that doesn't mean we can't use it for respiration. What can happen is you can take another substance like starch and convert it into glucose. Your body can do that. In fact, if you take some bread nowadays does actually have sugar in it, but if you take bread that doesn't have sugar in it and you put it in your mouth for 20 seconds or something, you'll notice it starts to taste sweet. And that's because an enzyme inside your saliva known as amylase is changing the starch into glucose. But even if that doesn't happen, it happens elsewhere in your body. And so the bread can eventually produce glucose, same as starch and potato and rice. And that helps, and that gets delivered around the body in the blood, which enables the respiration. So when I say this is respiration, more accurately, this is actually aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration means it uses oxygen. So there is a type of respiration which doesn't use oxygen. So let's just write a little bit about that for a moment. Right, so we have so this one was aerobic respiration. And if I write that into a full sentence then, aerobic respiration is a type of respiration which uses oxygen. And if you just started learning about respiration, you'll think, well, that's surely all respiration uses oxygen. But no, you've been learning about aerobic respiration. And there is another type of respiration called anaerobic respiration. Now, aerobic respiration is more efficient than anaerobic respiration, which I'll show you in a moment. Which means that you get more energy in the reaction. But there is anaerobic respiration, and humans. So also, I should make another thing clear is that this reaction, although I'm pointing to the animal cell, it occurs in all cells, all including plant cells, because as you can see, the plant cell also has mitochondria. So plant cells, although they produce they get their energy from the sun. What they do then is they use that energy to produce glucose. And then that glucose is reacted with oxygen, which they take in as well, and then they produce energy. So they need to, although they say they get the energy from the sun, but that's just to produce the glucose. We'll learn about photosynthesis in a moment. So aerobic respiration is a type of respiration which uses oxygen, and so anaerobic respiration does not use oxygen. Oxygen. So what would that reaction look like? Let's have a look. So anaerobic respiration. There are a couple of different types of anaerobic respiration. I want to get a simple diagram that's not A-level biology. 1 second. Right, so this is what would happen, anaerobic respiration in yeast, and then we've got anaerobic respiration in humans. I'll just use the pen for this. Oops, you accidentally deleted. Okay, there you go. So basically you have glucose and it gets converted into lactic acid. And not just humans, this is animals. So if we're doing lots of exercise, especially like lifting heavy weights maybe, or some sort of very difficult exercise, or sprinting, we're not able to get the oxygen to our muscles quickly enough, and so we start to produce energy we start to respire without the oxygen. Okay, so there's more to learn about this topic, and I want to just kind of do an overview. We haven't talked about photosynthesis yet. So as I said, photosynthesis is producing the glucose. Oh, hang on. So what's that? So let's have a look let's do it. Get another arrow. And I've already said that glucose is produced. So we can put that over there. There are other things that get produced as well. So we'll get a plus symbol there. And the other thing that gets produced is oxygen. So this is quite convenient, isn't it? We've got the glucose and the oxygen produced from photosynthesis, which is just what we need for respiration, and also what the plants need for respiration. So what else, what reacts to produce this? Well, it is carbon dioxide and water. So in other words, photosynthesis is exactly like respiration, but in reverse. Okay, so they work very, very, very closely with each other. If it once they just respiration goes one way and photosynthesis goes the opposite way. So wish it could turn this off. Photosynthesis. Now, if respiration is releasing energy, then photosynthesis can't also be releasing energy. It must require energy. So a little bit more advanced, if something is releasing energy, we can call it exothermic. It releases energy. Exo means out, thermic. Well, it's really talking about, you can think about like thermal, like heat. Often exothermic reactions produce heat, and you can feel it, something getting warmer. Photosynthesis would therefore be endothermic. It takes energy in. So where does it get the energy from? Well, we already know, don't we? It's from the sun. So, well, not just the sun, but any light, really. So it doesn't need to be sunlight, just light. So it uses the light for this reaction to happen, but we can't do it because plant cells have something else, and that is called chlorophyll. Not spelled like that, spelled like that. Chlorophyll. So light and chlorophyll aid this reaction, help it to happen. And where do we find chlorophyll? Inside chloroplasts. So these chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is green, so the chloroplasts are green, so the leaves are green because the leaves contain chloroplasts. So that's that pretty much sums up. I might just emphasize this last point. This energy from the sun is trapped inside these glucose molecules. So these little glucose molecules are like little packets of energy, and then we, all living things, plants and animals, use respiration to release the energy trapped inside the glucose molecule by reacting with oxygen inside the mitochondria of living cells, all living cells, and that releases the energy, and these are the waste products which need to be got rid of or be used as photosynthesis. Okay.